Well, hello everyone. I've never really made a video on anything that pertains to me whatsoever, but I wanted to share some information that has impacted me regarding COVID-19. So, COVID-19 has ruined my life. So my mother was an individual who received a routine back surgery a couple of months ago. And then after that, she began experiencing symptoms of falling down that had nothing to do related to COVID-19. So she ended up going back for a second back surgery. And their treatment plan was determined that she needed to enter into a rehab center located in Fitchburg, Massachusetts. So she was transitioned over to that facility to begin working on physical therapy to get better. I want to reiterate that this was a routine surgery and a routine practice. We did not know during the time of her admission that the case manager referred her to a facility that had active cases of COVID-19. So my mom was sent there, and while she was there, she contracted the virus. So initially, the nursing home, and it was a skilled nursing home, was satisfied that they could manage her symptoms. I was very adamant about having her sent over to the hospital to deal with the symptoms she was experiencing because I was not confident that the skilled nursing home would be able to manage her symptoms accordingly to prevent her from escalating. My requests were denied, of course, because of the fact that not a lot of patients are accepted into different facilities if they are positive for COVID-19. So, eventually, one day came rolling around and I was contacted, and I was informed that her situation deteriorated beyond control, and she was brought to Leominster ER to deal with her COVID symptoms because her oxygen level was dropping below 80. This was not a surprise to me because of the fact that I knew the skilled nursing home facility could not handle the symptoms she was displaying. But nobody was listening to me. I tried, I vocalized, I did whatever I could. And everything that I was saying was falling on deaf ears. So the Tuesday that she was admitted, later on that evening, she ended up being placed on a ventilator. The problem is that we were told by the doctors that patients that are placed on a ventilator from COVID-19 has a 20% chance of survival. So our family knew right off the bat that she was really in a tough condition. Not something that was going to be in a problem she could easily bounce back from. But I held hope. I had a lot of hope, and there were a lot of prayers. And I was hoping that by some miracle she would be able to rebound and successfully challenge this illness and overcome the problem. Unfortunately, during the time period, her symptoms continued to worsen over and over and over again. At one point in time, we heard some good news, and the news was that she would be participating in a treatment to receive plasma antibodies. And the antibody plasma had a success rate where individuals from day 1 through day 3 from receiving the antibodies would be showing a positive result from the material entering into her body. So I prayed and I hoped, and the third day came rolling around, and there was no change. In fact, she was getting worse. Now keep in mind that the reason why she had entered the rehab facility in the first place was simply because she needed physical therapy. She was not ill in any other form. And in fact, come to find out, that nursing home that she was staying at to receive rehab, over 30 patients ended up testing positive on the floor that she was placed at. So clearly, they were accepting patients at this nursing home when they did not have the situation managed and under control. So what happened since then? Well, as of yesterday, our family had to make a decision as to how we would proceed forward. And the problem was, she was in grave condition from the COVID-19 virus. And she was not able to urinate because her kidneys were impacted from the illness. Her feet were turning black. Her heart was having difficulty staying within rhythm. She was having low blood pressure, but she was also having arrhythmic issues with her heart. And she was fighting as hard as she possibly could. So the family got together and agreed that she should be placed in hospice care under comfort measures. So after that, the hospital decided to remove the ventilator, and shortly thereafter she passed on. This has been devastating to the family. I love my mother greatly, and she's an angel who has earned her wings. I wanted to share this information because there's a lot of people out there in society who feel that this illness could potentially be a hoax or has minimal impact. Well, that's not true. My mother was submitted into a rehab facility just for physical therapy from a routine back surgery. While there, she had slipped and fell, and I called the room number when I was trying really hard to get in touch with her, and she had the strength to pick up the phone at the rehab facility, and she was begging me for help. She said she had fallen, and nobody had come to assist her from the nursing facility. So she had been staying there for God knows how long on the floor after getting staples removed from her back. I did the best I could. I called the emergency line at the facility, and someone ran upstairs to come and pick her up off the floor. Strangely enough, after she was admitted to the ER, that information was omitted from her notes. Odd, isn't it? On top of that, the nursing home was supposed to be providing us information on her vitals. The treatment plan after she was diagnosed with COVID would be that she would be getting an assessment every 2 hours to ensure that her symptoms were not escalating. acquiring that information was like pulling teeth. Over the weekend, I did not get a call with any of the status at the nursing home to determine how well she was doing. I called the main number and it would ring and ring and ring and ring. At one point in time, I let it ring for almost 20 minutes before someone picked up, who happened to be an administrator for the nursing home. They apologized and stated that within the notes, there was documentation to state that the nursing home would be reaching out to my father to provide updates on my mother's condition from the nursing home. This was prior to her admission into the ER because of the fact that her condition was deteriorating. So she got some news when she was at the nursing home that her stats were fantastic. 95% oxygen level, great blood pressure, not abnormal heartbeats, nothing of that nature. Sunday comes rolling around. No other update was achieved. Once again, I had to reach out to the hospital, and finally I reached a nurse manager who stated that she was confused by the comment that she needed to contact my father with statistics and the stats on how well my mother was doing, that there were no notes in her file to identify that she was supposed to be calling and reaching out to my father for vitals. That's funny because the director of nursing plus the nursing home administrator both confirmed they had inputted the information into my mother's documentation so that the nurse would know to contact my father when necessary. Well, that nurse manager also said, guess what? They were short-staffed. Now, I understand this coronavirus is unprecedented. I understand that there's a lot of people that don't know how to deal with the illness, including subject matter experts that typically know how to deal with symptoms such as the flu, pneumonia, etc. But the fact that this nurse did not give my father an update was questionable. And it also kind of makes me wonder whether or not the nursing home is lying to my father. So this nurse manager stated that she had no clue. Nobody told her that she was supposed to pass on information on how well the vitals my mom had were. But now that she knew from this point forward, she would be making the calls to my dad to notify him of her condition. And her, I mean my mother. Well, Monday comes rolling around, and this is one day after the fact that we spoke to several people demanding that we get an update on my mom's condition. We received nothing. No update. No information. I tried calling my mother. My mother was clearly in a dire situation. I had been working really hard to try to get her transitioned over to a hospital for care, and it was like pulling teeth. So Monday, nobody within my family, including my father, was able to contact my mother. Tuesday comes rolling around, and 3 o'clock we get a surprise phone call. My mother's situation became to the point where the nursing home could not manage the situation whatsoever. Now, keep in mind, the nursing home had stated that they were adequately staffed to handle patients with COVID-19 appropriately so that they would not receive a critical level of care that was necessary. An ambulance was called, and my mother was brought over to the emergency room for care. Apparently, her oxygen level dropped around to 80. Her temperature was increasing. Her heartbeat was fast. And there were some other concerns that I don't want to get into, but that's enough to identify that clearly some questionable activity was occurring. Later on Tuesday night, I get a call from my brother who had spoken to someone from the ICU because my mother transitioned to the ICU, and he was told that she would be placed on a ventilator and she had a 20% chance of living. How horrible is that? The nursing home failed my mother. They just saw her as dollar signs. And anybody can say that, yes, nursing home are short-staffed. But if they were short-staffed, guess what they needed to do? They had the obligation to send my mother over to the emergency room to get her the proper treatment she deserved so she could live. My mother has been on a ventilator, and up until yesterday, she was struggling. My father, my brother, and I had a discussion, and we decided to pursue something called comfort measures. Comfort measures is when she goes into hospice care, the ventilator gets turned off, and my mother peacefully transitions and gains her angel wings and transitions and reincarnates. We were told by the hospital that her situation was so grave that the nursing home potentially had not given her proper care, potentially not giving her water and other forms of necessities that were needed to help keep her alive. Her labs indicated that she had undergone significant dehydration to the point where her kidneys and her urine were crystallizing, which means that she was beyond dehydrated and she was in dire condition. She had suffered tremendously at the nursing home. Now, I don't know about you, but if your loved one was in a nursing home and they were short-staffed and there was a pandemic going on, you would want them to transition to a medical facility of some type to get one-on-one care constantly to be monitored. I have a lot of guilt. My mother is dead. I tried really hard to intervene. I tried to get her transitioned over to the nursing home, but I was not successful until it was too late. And I had to make the decision, along with my father and brother, to sacrifice keeping her alive because she was suffering. Her feet had turned black. Her oxygen level at one point dropped to 50, which means that she could have experienced brain damage. And I don't know what to do. My mother is dead. I hope that there's other people out there that really take a good look at nursing homes. Do your research. She was submitted to this nursing home from a case manager because there happened to be an open bed after the surgery she received. Now, before you just allow for someone to go to a nursing home such as this, do your research. Make sure they're not just a 1 or 2-star nursing home with a history of allowing patients to fall or die. It's the least that you can do for your loved one. I bear the burden of my mom suffering. My mom suffered because I allowed for her to not transition elsewhere. I fought hard. I demanded her to be sent over to the ER, into the ICU to get proper care once she was diagnosed. Now this nursing home has over 30 patients on one floor with COVID-19. There may be some of you that may think, hey, it doesn't impact me. I'm healthy. I have a ability to deal with overcoming the illness if it happens to me. But these individuals that are protesting, and I guess they have the right to protest, but be aware that there are others that you could pass along the illness to inadvertently without even knowing that it occurred. My mother is dead. My mother is dead from COVID-19. She received poor treatment from a nursing home. She suffered greatly. She was dehydrated. She had fallen. There was hardly food in her stomach. She had to be ventilated at the ICU. And that's the one thing I can say about the ICU that's been really positive is they allowed for me to FaceTime. There were times where I was talking to my mother and she couldn't respond back, but there were tears in her eyes. I knew she could hear me. But now she's gone. I have so many regrets. I feel like I didn't try hard enough. But I'm very angry at the nursing home for not advocating and protecting my mother from this illness. The nursing home obviously had an active case of the illness running around, and they still were accepting patients. Is it because it's dollar signs? I have no idea. I don't know what their intentions were. But my mother suffered because of this. Now she has earned her angel wings, and she's flying to heaven, where she's going to be reincarnated because that's her belief system. She's Buddhist. And I hope she can hear me. I hope she recognizes that I love you, Mom. John loves you, my brother. My dad loves you. We all love you. And we don't want you to suffer. And we're glad that you're no longer in pain. And that's all I have to say. Please, please, please do your research before you allow a loved one to enter a nursing home. And I don't mean just related to COVID-19. Geriatrics patients and the elderly are some of the most vulnerable patients out there. A lot of times, they're not getting the proper care they deserve. Some of them can't speak. Some of them can't advocate for themselves. And guess what? If you're young now, eventually you will be aging. And if you do age, you may end up within a nursing home being treated poorly. There are nursing homes out there that treat individuals phenomenally. Doesn't happen very often from what I can see. So if there's one thing that I can tell you and that you can learn from my experience is do your research. If you can help your loved one, call ahead. Ask about their process and protocols as to how they handle certain situations such as pandemics. Gain a point of contact that you can reach out to on a daily basis, if possible, to ensure that your loved one is being cared for properly. I can tell you that my loved one was not being cared for properly. She suffered greatly. And now I'm suffering because I don't have a mother anymore. So please, just do yourself a favor. Do your research. Do whatever it is you can to share the information with your loved ones, because one day it could be you within a nursing home, and you want it to be treated fairly and safely and administered a protocol that will protect your life. I have nothing more to say, but please protect your loved ones, especially the elderly. They're vulnerable, and they don't always know how to advocate for themselves. I wish I did a better job of advocating for my mother. So, Mom, I love you more than anything. You earned your angel wings. So please transition to heaven happily so you can be with your mother and your aunt and party away. Thank you.